Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into something that sits right at the intersection of cutting-edge tech and, well, what it fundamentally means to be human. Does the rapid, honestly unbelievable advancement of AI translation technology make learning a human language completely obsolete? Think about it. If we can just pop an earbud in and instantly understand anyone, anywhere in the world, why on earth would we spend years memorizing vocabulary and wrestling with foreign grammar? It's a massive question. So today, we're going to break down the real data and expert insights to figure out the answer. Here's our roadmap for today. 1. The AI translation boom. 2. The pro versus AI challenge. 3. Translating words versus worlds. 4. The next generation speaks. And 5. A tool, not a substitute. Let's get right into it. All right, section 1, the AI translation boom. Okay, we really have to acknowledge the breathtaking pace at which this technology is advancing. It literally feels like science fiction becoming everyday reality. And we can map exactly how far we've come. If you look back to 1945, the incredibly high-stakes Nuremberg trials essentially birthed modern simultaneous professional interpretation. For decades, this was a highly specialized, exclusively human domain. But then, fast forward to 2021, AI speech translators like Kudo start getting seriously stress-tested against top-tier human professionals. And jump to right now, 2024. We've got mainstream consumer devices like Apple's AirPods Pro 3 with Apple Intelligence or Samsung's Galaxy AI, offering live translation piped directly into your ear. You just speak naturally and boom, the translated response is right there in your head. This brings up a super provocative premise. If technology offers a universal key right into our ears, if the machine can just handle the heavy lifting of vocabulary and syntax in real time, is there still a point in dedicating the immense time and effort required to learn a foreign language? To answer that, we have to know exactly how good the machine actually is under pressure. Which brings us to section 2, the Pro vs. AI challenge. To really test the theory that AI has somehow solved the language barrier, we're going to look at a brutal stress test conducted by Wired magazine. They pitted elite human professional interpreters against a state-of-the-art AI speech translator. They designed 3 specific tests to push both to their absolute limits: emotion, spontaneity, and speed. And to do this, they used real political speeches. Now, they did this purely to test linguistic complexity and structural challenges totally impartially. They used a speech by Spain's King Felipe for emotion, one from Colombia's Gustavo Petro for spontaneity, and a highly scripted, rapid-fire speech from El Salvador's Nayib Bukele to test speed. Let's look at the first test, emotion. King Felipe was delivering this incredibly solemn speech during the height of the COVID crisis, talking about the immense toll on healthcare workers. The human interpreter nailed it, accurately conveying that these workers were carrying a physical and emotional burden. But the AI? It completely bungled the emotional nuance. It translated the phrase literally as the great emotional charge and physics on their backs. If you know Spanish, you can kind of see the machine's logic there, but in English, it results in this borderline nonsensical, super awkward phrase that completely strips the empathy right out of the speech. However, we absolutely have to give credit where credit is due. During the spontaneity test, the AI actually showed some really remarkable strengths. It excelled at instantly capturing specific terms of art, formal titles, and raw numbers. When Gustavo Petro mentioned 20 billion pesos, the AI nailed it instantly and perfectly. Whereas human interpreters, they can sometimes momentarily stumble when a massive string of numbers gets thrown at them on the fly. But here's the catch. Human speech isn't just raw data, right? It is rhythm. During the spontaneity test, when the speaker used pauses and shifting vocal inflections to build an argument, the AI just fell apart. It would hear a pause, assume the sentence was over, and translate it as a complete thought. This created these isolated bubbles of text that actually resulted in absurd contradictions. The human interpreter, on the other hand, listened to the speaker's vocal inflection, recognized that a pause meant, hey, I'm not finished yet, and successfully followed the true narrative flow of the argument. And this brilliantly illustrates the final test, speed. The speaker was reading insanely fast from a teleprompter about global inflation. Honestly, the AI was incredible at catching every single word. It remembered exactly which currencies, dollars, euros, yen, were mentioned. But it struggled heavily with native syntax. It spit out the phrase, new currency issues, which is super ambiguous. Does issues mean problems, or does it mean the printing of money? The human pro, however, extracted the core meaning from this absolute torrent of words and served up a perfectly usable, processed idea, translating it clearly as infusions of cash. The human doesn't just translate words, they process meaning. All right, moving on to Section 3, translating words versus worlds. The crucial point here is that mechanical translation is just one piece of the puzzle. Which brings us to this insightful quote from Tiziana Hogg, a parent at the Global School Brooklyn. Speaking about AI, she said, "But they translate words, not worlds." This perfectly hits the nail on the head. Language is so much more than data exchange. It's like a giant puzzle interwoven with history and subtle context. AI consistently misses the cultural idioms, the humor, the sarcasm, and the delicate politeness embedded in language. When you learn a language yourself, you get an immersive understanding of another culture's mindset. And that builds genuine trust in a way that talking through an earpiece simply cannot replicate. Which brings us back to our core question. If AI can handle the basic vocabulary and basically survive a trip to a foreign grocery store, we really must ask, what are the actual cognitive and personal returns on investment for spending years learning a language yourself? Well, it turns out learning a language builds uniquely human skills that offer massive, lifelong returns. The GSB article outlines these cognitive gains. It strengthens critical thinking and enhances problem-solving skills. It dramatically improves memory and mental flexibility. Studies even suggest it protects long-term brain health. But perhaps most importantly, in our increasingly digital world, it fosters empathy and deep cultural sensitivity. These are highly sought-after, distinctly human skills that AI just cannot emulate. Next up, Section 4, the next generation speaks. Let's see how this all plays out in the real world by listening to the pure, functional desires of multilingual kids featured in a great video by the British Council. One young student said, "I would like to learn Arabic because our neighbors speak a lot of Arabic and I wonder what they're saying sometimes." I absolutely love this. It completely grounds our lofty philosophical points in everyday reality. Kids don't want to learn languages just to pad a resume. They want to learn them to build immediate, authentic human connections with the people living right next door to them. As one of the educators noted, language learning is fundamentally about expanding your world. Whether it's the thrill of independently ordering food in a new country, the empathy gained from understanding different opinions, or simply expanding horizons for children who might otherwise never cross the River Thames to see the wider world, language is all about direct, unmediated human experience. And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, a tool, not a substitute. So, what's the final verdict on how we should view AI translation? First, we must acknowledge the limitations. The Wired professionals made it explicitly clear AI is currently unsafe for high-stakes environments. You should never trust an AI in courtrooms or legal systems, in delicate asylum cases, during critical medical interactions, or for high-level diplomatic decisions involving millions of lives. In scenarios where metaphorical language, deep nuance, and absolute accuracy are paramount, the human mind is completely irreplaceable. So we arrive at this really clear comparison. AI translation is an invaluable tool. It is absolutely fantastic for low-stakes efficiency, getting the gist of a menu, quickly looking up a word, or drafting a basic email. But technology can fail, and sometimes it's just clunky. Like how Apple's live translation currently requires one person to stare at a live transcription on an iPhone screen if they don't have matching earbuds. True fluency, the confidence to navigate the real world independently, high-stakes accuracy, deep empathy, and genuine connection, that comes entirely from the human learning process. AI is an aid, not a substitute. And that brings us to the end of our explainer today. We'll leave you with this final thought to spark your curiosity. As AI continues to advance and inevitably takes over the mechanical exchange of mere words, how will you ensure you don't get lost in translation? How will you build genuine trust and connect with the real world? The technology is amazing for sure, but the human mind remains the ultimate translator. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.